Thank you so much, Mark. And I have to say, I'm absolutely thrilled to be here on this especially relevant date because, as you mentioned, Make Love Not Porn was launched at TED in 2009. So I'm grateful to TED for our very
Yeah.
existence. And the way to think about us is if porn is the Hollywood blockbuster movie, Make Love Not Porn is the badly needed documentary because we are a unique window onto the funny, messy, loving, wonderful sex we all have in the real world. We're socializing, normalizing, and destigmatizing sex to promote consent, communication, good sexual values, and good sexual behavior. We're literally sex education through real world demonstration. But the reason it's particularly apposite to be talking about love today, Mark, is because all around us in popular culture, movies, TV, stream platforms, we are surrounded by many creative expressions and narratives of relationships, but
Mm.
we never see the actual sex. On Make Love Not Porn, you see the actual sex, but you also see the relationships. Because in our videos, those two things are indivisible. And so in our, partnered coupled videos, you see how love plays out, how healthy relationship dynamics play out within sex in the real world. And that is something you do not get to see anywhere else. And also, by the way, it's worth saying that we also have many solo videos, masturbation videos. And in those videos, you see what it's like to basically love yourself,
Mm.
to have a very healthy love for your own body and your own sexuality. And I must say, at a time when there are many awful things playing out on other social platforms, I feel very lucky that I and my team get to watch nothing but love all day, every day. And so we really see, where the rubber hits the road, as it were, in terms of how people are loving each other in the real world. And I have to tell you, it is profound and moving and wonderful. And we feel privileged to be able to do that.
I'm thinking about the amount of the many years that you've been doing this. And concurrent with that, we've seen this rise in digital communication. And I'm curious, how do you think technology has transformed how we express love and intimacy in the modern world?
Do you know what I would say, Mark, is that technology has absolutely impacted it, and quite often in quite negative ways.
Mm.
Because there are now many forms of technology actively designed to drive us further and further apart from each other into our
Right,
own little virtual or social worlds.
right.
But honestly, underlying that is the fundamental human need for connection, intimacy, and also contact and human touch and warmth. That never goes away. And so when people have opportunities to connect with each other more profoundly, in the real world, that is absolutely what people demonstrate they want. And so I feel very heartened by the fact that even though we are addicted to our phones, we are meeting each other on dating apps. What absolutely underpins that is a real belief in the power of love and human connection.
I'm curious, um, the impact that COVID had when we couldn't meet, and I'm thinking of single people, right, who rely on being able to get out and be in social situations where they can meet new people. Let's take the virtual meeting people off of that. But I think that I know for myself, just craved human connection with other people. Do you think that that extended period, a couple of years, of social isolation, because some people got out of it quickly, some people are still not out of it. Do you think that put we value that that social connection in real life more than we did before because maybe we took it for granted and now we don't? I'm not sure. Do you think I'm right on that?
I think you're absolutely spot on, Mark, because the pandemic was so interesting. For years before that, we'd all gone, the future's digital. It's all about technology. And boy, oh boy, did the pandemic ever prove that on the other side of that, what we were all yearning for was IRL, human touch,
Right.
connection, love, intimacy. And I think that gave us a newfound appreciation of that. And we continue to see that the people absolutely value that beyond the time when we were not allowed it. So I think you're absolutely right in that presumption.
I feel like I'm a very old boomer when I'm in a restaurant and I see a couple on a date and they're both on their phones and I want to walk over. I don't. I promise I don't. But I really want to say, you're only going to be in this spot for maybe an hour. And it would be great if you had conversation with one another or just stay home and get a TV dinner or something. It's just, but that's just me being old and crotchety, I think. I'd like to understand, you talk about make love lot porn. You talk about diverse expressions of love and intimacy. And maybe you could share with the audience some of the surprising or unconventional relationship models you've encountered, especially as I believe culturally we're working hard to be more inclusive, working hard to understand and be allies to diversity.
Absolutely, Mark. I mean, I designed Make Love Not Porn to be fully diverse and inclusive, and we are. Our members and our contributors, whom we call our Make Love Not Porn stars, are all ages, male, female, trans, non-binary, straight, LGBTQ, all races and ethnicities. We're a global platform. But I think what is really interesting is that as a window onto how we are all relating and having relationships in the real world, we also demonstrate the diversity of the different relationship models that people have designed for themselves. Society tells us that, you meet someone, you fall in love, you have a committed relationship, you get married. And we have contributions from people who have designed their own approaches to what makes a happy, healthy relationship for them. And so, those range on Make Love Not Porn from, there is one couple where the wife shares videos with us, and she explains in her introduction that she and her husband have an agreement once a year. She is allowed to meet up with her high school sweetheart and get it together with him in a hotel room. And we assume, by the way, this is a reciprocal arrangement. We don't know because she shares the videos of her doing this, but we don't hear from the husband. But that's interesting because for couples who might want to explore opening up their marriage somewhat, but don't want to go the whole way, that is a very interesting, very defined way of approaching that clearly really works for this particular marriage. And that can give ideas to other people. Equally, obviously we do have polyamorous relationships, we have thruples, but we have the real world version of that where you see the negotiation, the empathy, the sensitivity,
Mm,
the mutual
mm.
respect. And I think that, these diverse forms of relationship models are very useful in educating people as to ways that they can be happy beyond what is a very limited number of societal models that we are always taught to operate.
I'm curious as a boomer and as this wave of boomer moves into past middle age now, right? We're 60, 70, 80 years old, and there's all kinds of challenges, chronic pain, menopause, lots of things that people are trying to deal with. From your perspective, are there key strategies or insights that have emerged that you've learned from watching these couples and
Mm.
listening to these couples?
Absolutely, and I should say, Mark, I just turned 64 on February 1.
I
So
know. Happy
so
birthday.
Thank you. I absolutely created Make Love Not Porn to celebrate Make Older Love Not Porn. And in fact, our older members really appreciate the fact that we demonstrate you can have a wonderful sex life well into, whatever age you get to. But as you say, this is the real world. And so we have a number of Make Love Not Porn stars who are managing their sexuality and their sex lives through real world health conditions. And that is enormously helpful to our community because we have, menopausal Make Love Not Porn stars, where obviously that impacts their sex life and they are sharing how they and their partner manage through that. We have cancer survivors
Mm.
who are reclaiming their bodies. We have people with chronic pain, and actually when you have a condition that results in chronic pain, orgasms can be a very useful way of pain relief actually,
Oh,
and relaxing your body. And so we talk about Make Love Porn as telehealth for your sex life, because essentially all of these wonderful Make Love Not Porn stars, in making themselves vulnerable and sharing how they are addressing these scenarios, are really helping and inspiring so many other people accordingly.
I'm also curious, do you have any experience with as the other thing that happens with as people get older, they take medicines that actually have detrimental effect on like reducing urge and those kinds of things. How are people dealing with that? It feels like that's also now that I think of it, there's probably more reliance on antidepressants and those kinds of things. How is the how is big pharma impacting our love lives, our sex lives?
So what's interesting about that is, to your point, Mark, absolutely. We also have Make Love Not Porn stars who are on antidepressants or ADHD medication to
Right,
talk about how that impacts, their
right.
sexuality. But I think that the really interesting thing is, we hear from so many people who say, "You saved our marriage, you saved our
Oh,
relationship,"
wow. Wow.
where the sexual desire had waned. And I think, the interesting thing is, when they find Make Love Not Porn and they are watching our videos together, they are watching something very different to anything else. They are watching videos with feelings and emotions. They are also, and I think this is quite key, because we heard from a couple who've been married a very long time, 20 years or so. The husband was diagnosed with prostate cancer. He had an operation, he went through chemo, came out cancer free, but with erectile dysfunction. And they'd had a very happy, thriving sex life. And so they're very unhappy about this. They went to a therapist who recommended Make Love Not Porn. We found
Uh,
this out because they wrote us this massive long email full of gratitude. And they said, "Oh my God, we discovered you. This has been amazing." And what I thought was interesting, Mark, was they said, "And actually, our sex life now is even better than it was before the cancer and the surgery." And while they didn't get specific, the reason I think they would have said that is because we demonstrate many ways to enjoy sex that are non-penetrative.
mm,
And in a way that people may not have fully realized, because our culture, and this isn't just porn, but sort of, movies, popular culture generally, puts enormous emphasis on the importance of penetration. And actually, we showcase many ways of having a very good time that don't require that. And I think that that also expands people's sexual horizons and shows them other ways to have a wonderful time that are enormously helpful.
which leads me to um, there are, there are the stories we're told, the stories we tell, and the stories we tell ourselves. What are some of the common misconceptions or stories we tell ourselves that you would like to dispel?
I have to say, the one that and again, I say this because I've had 15 years of watching love play out before my eyes, as it were.
Yeah.
What I would love to dispel is the idea that you have to be a certain type of physical attractiveness to be
Mm,
sexually attractive and desirable. And
mm,
I say that, Mark, because, you know, at Make Love Not Porn, we celebrate real world everything. real world bodies, real world hair, real world penis size, real world breast size, real world vulvas. And the reason that's so important is because, in a world where every message popular culture sends us tells us you are not hot, sexual desire, unless you are this skinny, six-pack abs, look like this. Our members write to us and say, you made me feel better about my own body.
Mm.
Because what we demonstrate, Mark, is that what actually makes you hot and desirable is you. What makes you a wonderful, lovable person is you, your personality, and then your partner loves your body and thinks it's hot as hell because it's yours.
Mm.
That's the way round it works. And
Mm.
that is absolutely the myth that, I'm all about communication through demonstration. We dispel that on Make Love Not Porn, but that is absolutely what I wish more people understood. What makes you hot and attractive and desirable is you.
I sure wish that message could get across to the I think it's the preteens. I'm thinking of the Swifties right now who, judge themselves against the other people who are, it's that whole
Hmm.
social media piece where they're judging. I'm guessing that's not your audience, or is it?
Yeah, well, actually, Mark, it is because I'm raising funding right now to build what I've had in the pipeline for years because parents and teachers began writing to me from day one of Make Love Not Porn. And so I want to build the 0 to 18 and beyond
Oh, got
sex
it.
education expansion, Make Love Not Porn Academy. And, if our listeners would like to go to makelovenotporn.academy, I bought the URL years ago, you will see my whole vision laid out there for. I don't want to reinvent the wheel, Mark. This is an aggregation play. I want to build the go to global hub for the best of the world's sex education content,
Mm.
freely available to children, young people, parents, teachers, searchable by age appropriateness and
Right.
sensibility, because that will absolutely, do for 18 and under what at Make Love Not Porn we're doing for 18 and over.
It feels like that is such a huge opportunity culturally for us because that I feel there's this immense pressure that came about 15 years ago when the iPhone came out and we had these the whole world in our pocket, and we've seen how that's evolved and there's a lot of people working on that. Cindy, thank you so much for this conversation. I appreciate that it's very obvious you love your work and that you're on a mission. Thank you.
It's been an absolute pleasure, Mark.